Well, and now when we stopped on page number 11 in the last class, well, he was interested in talking about the pornographic playing cards. Well, he says on page number 11, well, Jerry says, so don't, besides, I was trying to plumb your post-adolescent sexual life and hard times. What I wanted to get at is the value difference between the pornographic playing cards when you are a kid and the pornographic playing cards when you are older. What difference? Well, he wants to know, but since he's a married man, since Peter is a married man, a man with a family, a decent family, wife, and two children, well, he wants to measure, he wants to plumb. He says, I want to plumb, I want to measure. Well, the value difference between the pornographic playing cards when you are a kid. Now, how does those cards help you when you are a kid and when you are older? What difference it makes? It is that when you are a kid, when a person is a child, the playing cards are used as a substitute for a real experience, a real, family experience, a real sexual experience. But when you are older, well, the real experience is there. You use the real experience as a substitute for the fantasy. The fantastic experience that you had in the childhood. But imagine, I would rather hear about what happened at the zoo. Well, he says about the zoo, Peter, enthusiastic. Oh yes, at the zoo. Then he said, that is, if you, well, he's trying to say, if you don't mind, well, Jerry, let me tell you about why I went. I will tell you. Well, let me tell you some things. I have told you about the 4th floor of the rooming house, about his lodging, where I live. I think the rooms are better as you go down, because it is a multi-story building and he is living on the top. As you go down, he says, well, the rooms are, dilapidated. They are very old. They are not in a good condition. But as you go down the stairs to the lower floors, floor by floor, I guess they are better. The rooms are better in the lower floors. I don't know any of those people on the 3rd and 2nd floors. The people living on the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor, I don't know. Oh wait, I do know that there is a lady on the 3rd floor. Now he tries to tell Peter about one particular lady, a lady living on the 3rd floor. Yet in the 3rd floor, in the front, I know her. Why? Because she cries all the time. All the time she cries. And that is how he says, I know her. I always hear her crying, muffled. When I go out or come back, whenever I pass the door, I always hear her crying. It's a muffled crying, but very determined indeed. But the one I am getting to, I want to tell you about this particular lady. But the one I am getting to, and all about the dog, is the landlady. Now I want to tell you about the landlady. She's a peculiar type of lady, my landlady. I don't like to use words that are too harsh in describing people. When I tell others about people, when I describe people to others, well, I don't use bad words. I don't use strong words. I don't use harsh words. I don't like to. But the landlady, now I have to tell you something about my landlady. But the landlady is a fat, ugly, mean, stupid, unwashed, misanthropic, cheap, drunken bag of garbage. Look at the description. Look at the description that he gives about her landlady, about his landlady. She's a fat woman, very ugly, very mean, very stupid, unwashed. Well, she doesn't wash herself, very dirty, misanthropic. Well, she hates men, cheap, drunken bag of garbage. This is the description that he gives about his landlady. And you may have noticed that I very seldom use profanity. I never use bad language when I describe people. But as far as this lady is concerned, so I can't describe her as well as I might. Now, I want to tell you more. I want to tell you more about that lady, but I don't like using profane language. I don't like using bad language. That's why I stop here. Then, Peter, you describe her. You describe her vividly. Don't worry. You tell me about her. Well, thanks. Anyway, she has a dog. Now, this is what I want to tell you about her. She has a dog. Now, remember, the title of the play is Zoo Story. Now, Jerry is going to give Peter a very detailed description about the dog, a story about that landlady's dog. Now, she has a dog. Well, I will tell you about the dog. And she and her dog are the gatekeepers of my dwelling. The woman is bad enough. She leans around in the entrance hall, spying to see that I don't bring in things or people. And when she has had her mid-afternoon pint of lemon-flavored gin, she always stops me in the hall and grabs hold of my coat or my arm. She grabs hold of my coat or my arm and she press her disgusting body up against me to keep me in a corner so she can talk to me. Oh, the smell of her body and her breath. You can't imagine it. And somewhere in the back of that pea-sized, that small little brain of hers, an organ developed just enough to let her eat, drink, and emit. And she has some foul parody of sexual desire. And I, Peter, I am the object of her sweaty lust. Oh, well, she wants to seduce me. He says, his landlady, she's a very, very dirty creature. And when he goes out and he comes in, he waits in the hall with her dog. And then she catches hold of him and she presses her, dirty, foul-smelling body against his body because she wants to have sex with him. Oh, Peter, I am the object of her sweaty lust. Then, Peter, well, that is very bad. That is disgusting. That's horrible. Then Jerry says, but I have found a way to keep her off. Now I have invented a method. I have invented a way to keep her aloof, to keep her away, to keep her off, away from me. When she talks to me, when she presses her body, when she presses herself to my body and mumbles about the room and how I should come there, well, she wants to invite me. She wants to invite me to have sex with me. I just say, when she presses her body against my body, well, she's a very, very foul smelling, her body, stinking body, her breath, mouth, very, very stinking. Now, when she comes to me, I just say, oh, but love, wasn't yesterday enough for you? Well, we have had a relationship yesterday. Is it not enough for you? Or the day before? Is it not enough? Because she's drunk. Because every afternoon, she takes gin. She's intoxicated. So I just tell her, when she catches hold of me, when she grabs my arm, when she presses her body against my body, I just tell her, oh dear, oh love, wasn't yesterday enough for you? The day before? And then she is puzzled because she is drunk. She makes slits of her tiny eyes. She just opens her eyes a little bit. Then she sways, she moves, she sways a little. And then Peter, well, it is at this moment that I think I might be doing some good in that tormented house. Well, this is the only way that I can escape from that dirty woman. A simple-minded smile begins to form on her unthinkable, because she is confused, because she is drunk, on her unthinkable face. And she jiggles, she smiles and groans as she thinks about yesterday and the day before, because I tell her, well, wasn't it enough that we have had a relationship yesterday or the day before? And she thinks of that because she is puzzled, she is drunk. And she believes, and she relives what never happened, because we have never had a relationship yesterday or the day before yesterday. Then she moves to that back monster of a dog she has, and she goes back to her room. So with her dog, she goes back to her room, and for the time being, I am safe. I am safe until our next meeting. Now, I am very anxious. I'll be very afraid, because until the next meeting, I am safe. So I am happy for the time being. Then Peter, oh, it's so unthinkable. I find it hard to believe that people such as that really are. It's very difficult for me to believe that there are such people in this world. Then Jerry, lightly mocking, in a mocking tone, it's for reading about, such stories about such people. It would make a good reading. You can read about such things it will make a very interesting reading, isn't it? Peter, seriously, yes, that's right, you are right. Then Jerry, and the fact is better left to fiction. Well, it's good. It would make good, fictional reading. You're right, Peter. Well, what I have been meaning to tell you about is the dog. Now, I want to tell you about the dog, the landlady's dog. Now, I shall tell you. Well, Peter. Oh yes, the dog. Yes, the dog. Well, don't go. Don't go, please. Don't go. You are not thinking of going. Are you going to leave? Are you going away? Then Peter, well, no, I don't think so. Well, Jerry, as if to tell, because after I tell you about the dog, do you know what then? Then I'll tell you what happened at the zoo. So first I'll tell you about the dog, then I'll tell you what happened at the zoo. Then Peter, laughing, oh, you are full of stories, aren't you? You're full of stories. You have a lot. Your mind is filled with stories. Well, Jerry, now you don't have to listen, please. Be here. You don't have to listen, because nobody is holding you. Nobody is keeping you here. Well, remember that. Keep that in your mind. Please be here. Now, Peter, a little irritably, I know that. Then Jerry, oh, you do. Good. Now, there is going to be a long speech. A long speech about the story of Jerry and the dog. It's a long speech. Now, the dramatist, Albee, he gives the following speech. He gives some instructions, stage directions he gives. It seems to me, the dramatist says, this long speech should be done with a great deal of action to achieve a hypnotic effect on Peter and the audience too. Well, some specific actions have been suggested, but the director and the actor playing Jerry might best work it out for themselves. Well, he doesn't give a lot of instructions, stage directions but the actor who is playing the role of Jerry can invent, the actions required by themselves. Well, he's going to tell, Jerry is going to tell him a prolonged story about the story of Jerry and the dog. Now, this is what he says, very natural. Now, he's going to narrate the story. Now, well, natural again. What I am going to tell you has something to do with how sometimes it is necessary to go a long distance out of the way in order to come back a short distance correctly. Or maybe I only think that it has something to do with that. But it is why I went to the zoo today. He says, why I walked north. Now he went to the zoo and now he has come back rather until so he walked a long way to the zoo and then he came back here. All right. The dog. The dog, I think I told you, the dog is a black monster of a beast. Oh, it's a beast. It's a brute, a black brute. An oversized head. The dog has a big head, very tiny ears and eyes. Oh, bloodshot, very red. It is a big head, very small ears and eyes. Oh, bloodshot. Infected, maybe infected. It has some disease maybe. And the body, what about the body of the dog? The body you can see the ribs through the skin. You can see because it is very lean. It is very lean and emaciated. Maybe it has been, it has not been eaten, it has been starving. Was it? Now, the dog is black. All black except for the bloodshot eyes. And yes, so it has red eyes, but it is completely black. A big head, very tiny ears. Yes, an open sore. The dog has an open sore. It has a wound, an infected wound. An open sore on its right forepaw, on the right front leg. And that is also red. So the eyes are red and the sore, the wound, the infected wound is also red. Oh yes, the poor monster. Now, I do believe it is an old dog. It is not very young. It's an old dog. And it is certainly a misused one. It's a misused dog, I think. Because almost always it has an erection. It has that, it is sexually stimulated. It has an erection of sorts, and that is also red. That body part is also red, and that is red too. And what else? Oh yes, there is a gray, yellow, white color. The dog has another color, a grayish, yellowish, white color. What is it? When he bares his fangs, the dog's teeth, that is gray, white, and yellow color. Well, when he bares his fangs like this, grrr, when he does like this, when he growls, well, he bares his fangs, his teeth, which is yellow, gray, and white, which is what he did when he saw me for the first time. Well, this is what he did. This is what he did at me for the first time. But what he just did like this, grrr. Then the day I moved in. Now this was the dog's first response when he saw me for the first time. I worried about that animal the very first minute I met him. Now, animals don't take to me like St. Francis. St. Francis. St. Francis had birds. St. Francis is the patron saint of birds and hanging off all the time. Now, I am not like St. Francis because, birds are his favorite thing because he is the patron saint of birds. Now, animals and birds, they don't like me. Now, what I mean is, animals are indifferent to me. Like people, he smiles slightly most of the time. Animals are indifferent to me, like people. People are also indifferent to me because he's a solitary man. He has no relatives. He has no friends. he is all the times he is alone. Now people don't like me like that. Animals don't like me. But this dog wasn't indifferent. Well, from the very beginning, he would snarl, grrr, he would snarl, and then go for me to get to one of my legs. He wants to bite one of my legs. Not like he was a rabbit, not like that, he was suffering from rabies. He was not a mad dog, He was sort of a stumbly dog. He's always behind me, as if, I would stumble upon him. And he wasn't half-assed either. It was a good and stumbly run, and I always got away. He would run after me, I would escape. I would always got away. He got a piece of my trouser leg. One day, he bit me and he got a piece of my trouser leg. Look, you can see right here, you can see it here, or on my trousers, where it is mended. He got that the second day I lived there. Well, he tried to bite me, he bit me, and he got a piece of my trousers. But I kicked free. Well, I set myself free from him and got upstairs. I ran away. So that was that. And still I don't know to this day how the other roomers, what about the other people? How do they manage? I don't know. But what I think it had to do only with me. I think that animal, that dog, it just doesn't like me, only me. Cozy. It's nice, isn't it? So anyway, this went on for a week. This went on for over a week. Whenever I came in, but never when I went out. Whenever I went out, well, it wouldn't disturb me. Whenever I came in, well, it would come at me. Well, I thought about it. I thought about it in my room one day. One of the times after I had bolted upstairs and made up my mind, I took a decision. What? I decided, first, I will kill the dog with kindness. If that doesn't work, I will kill the dog with kindness, softly. I will kill him. And if that doesn't work, then I will just kill him. I'll just kill him. Then Peter winces. Oh yes. No, killing a dog, he just winces. No, don't react. Just listen. So the next day, so I have decided. I took a decision. I decided to kill the dog. First, mercifully. Then if it doesn't work, I would just kill him. So the next day, I went out and bought a bag of hamburgers. I bought a bag full of hamburger, medium rare, no ketchup. There was no ketchup, no onion, nothing, only plain hamburger. And on the way home, I threw away all the rolls and just kept the meat. I threw away. I left all the rolls and I just kept the meat, only the meat. Now, when I go back to the rooming house, when I went back, the dog was waiting for me. I half opened the door that led into the entrance hall, and there he was. Oh, when I reached there, he was waiting for me. It was waiting. The dog was waiting for me. It figures. I went in very cautiously, and I had the hamburgers. You remember? I opened the bag. I set the meat down about 12 feet from where the dog was snarling at me. Now he snarled. As soon as he saw me, he snarled, stopped snarling, sniffed. He started sniffing, and he moved slowly and then faster and faster towards the meat. Well, when he got to the meat, he stopped, and then he looked at me. I smiled tentatively. Well, not definitely, tentative, almost smiled. You understand? He turned his back. He turned his back to the hamburgers. Then he smelled. He sniffed no more. And then, like that, he did. Then he tore into them. he started eating. He started eating the hamburger. Oh, it was as if he had never eaten anything in his life before. As if he was starving, except like garbage. Maybe he might have been, feeding himself on the garbage. He was eating only garbage, as if he had never seen something like this, as if he had never seen any food in his life, which might very well have been the truth. I don't think the landlady never eats anything but garbage. The landlady is also like the dog. She eats only, maybe only garbage. But he ate all the hamburgers, almost all at once, making sounds in his throat like a woman. Well, the dog was eating like a woman. Then, when he had finished the meat, the hamburger, and tried to eat the paper too, and he sat down and smiled. I think he smiled. I know cats do. I know cats do. It was a very gratifying few moments. So you should have seen that. You should have witnessed it. He sat and smiled. It was very gratifying few. Then, bam! What? He snarled. After finishing the hamburger, he snarled. Grrr. He snarled and made for me. He ran at me. He jumped at me. He made for me again. He didn't get me this time either, because I ran away. I got upstairs and I lay down on my bed, started to think about that dog again. To be truthful, I was offended. I was very angry. And I was damn mad too. It was 6 perfectly good hamburgers, a bag full of hamburgers. 6 hamburgers was not enough pork in them to make it disgusting. Well, I was offended. Still I gave him 6 hamburgers and still he was angry. I wondered, well, it mightn't be overcome his antipathy. So I tried it 5 more days. I repeated it for 5 more days. But it was always the same. Snarl, sniff, move, faster, stare, gobble, rrr, like this. Smile, snarl, bam. Well, now, by this time, Columbus Avenue was strewn with the hamburger rolls. The way, the streets there, the street that I walk, I use. Well, both sides were, both sides were filled with hamburger rolls, scattered with the hamburger rolls, because I was less offended than disgusted. So I decided to kill the dog. Now Peter raised a hand in protest. No. Now, don't be so alarmed, Peter. I didn't succeed. The day I didn't succeed. I didn't succeed in killing the dog. The day I tried to kill the dog. So I decided that I would kill the dog. So, since I gave him hamburgers, bags full of hamburger all for a week, still, there was no change in his behavior, in his attitude towards me. So I decided to kill the dog. The day I tried to kill the dog, I bought only 1 hamburger. And what I thought was a murderous portion of rat poison. So I bought rat poison. When I bought the hamburger, I asked the man not to bother with the roll. Don't worry about the roll. Just to give me the meat. I told him not to bother with the roll. All I wanted was the meat. I expected some I thought he would react, because I asked for the man at the shop. When I told him, don't worry about the rolls, just give me the meat. Well, he might have doubted. Well, we don't sell hamburgers without the rolls. What do you want me to do? Then eat it out of your hands? But no, he smiled benignly. Then wrapped up the hamburger in a waxed paper and said, a bite for your pussy cat? Is it for your pussy cat? Now, I wanted to say, no, not really. It is part of a plan to poison the dog, I know. I wanted to tell him like that. But you can't say a dog, I know. But you can't say like that, because without sounding funny. So I just said too loud. Yes. What? I'm afraid too funny. Yes, a bite for my pussy cat. I said, because to talk about dog, it's not nice. Now people looked up. So When he said, when he said, I am buying a bike for my pussycat, people looked up. It always happens when I try to simplify things. People look up. You know, whenever I talk like this, people look at me, they look up. It always happens. But that's neither hither nor thither. So on my way back to the rooming house, I started, pressing, I started mixing, needed the hamburger and the rat poison together between my hands. At that point, feeling as much as sadness as disgust, I opened the door. I opened the door to the entrance hall, and there the monster was waiting to take the offering, and then jumped me. Poor bastard, the dog. He never learned that the moment he took to smile before he went for me, gave me time enough to get out of range. I just threw the thing at him and then escaped. But there he was. What? Malevolence. Malevolence with an erection. Was very angry, waiting. So what did I do? I put the poison patty down, moved it towards the stairs, and watched. Well, the poor animal gobbled the food down as usual. He ate everything, smiled, and which made me almost sick, because after eating the poisoned hamburger, well, he smiled at me. Oh, I was very, very sad. When that made me almost, then bah, I sprinted. I ran away. I sprinted up the stairs as usual, and the dog didn't get me as usual. And it came to pass that the beast was deathly ill. Oh, I thought he was killed. It was sick. It was ill, deathly ill. I knew this because he no longer attended me, and because the landlady sobered up. Well, she was drunk. Now she had a very, very clear mind, sobered up. She talked to me. She talked to me in the hall the same evening of the attempted murder, the day I tried to kill the dog. Well, she talked to me, and she told me, she confided the information that, oh, God had punished her. God had struck her puppy dog a surely blow, a fatal blow. She had forgotten her bewildered lust. Well, she had forgotten all about, the things that she used to do by pressing her body against mine, and her lust and the sex matter, all those things that she had forgotten because she was worried about the dog. She had forgotten about her bewildered lust, and her eyes were wide open for the first time. She looked like the dog's eyes. She snivelled and implored me. She requested me, implored me to pray for the animal. Well, I wanted to say to her, Madam, I have myself to pray for. I have so many other people to pray for, not your dog. The colored queen I have, the Puerto Rican family, the person in the front room whom I have never seen, the woman who cries deliberately behind the closed door, and the rest of the people in the rooming house. I have so many people to pray for, not your dog. I wanted to say like that, but I didn't say. Well, everywhere besides, Madam, I don't understand how to pray. But I don't pray. I don't understand how to pray. Well, but to simplify things. Now, the long and short of this was that, I told her, finally I just told her I would pray. Then she looked up. She said that I was a liar. She said I was a liar, and that probably wanted the dog to die. Maybe probably, she told me in my face, because that I was lying. I wanted the dog to die. She told me like that. I told her, what? There was so much truth here, but that I didn't want the dog to die. I told her, even though that was a truth. She was telling the truth. I just told her I didn't want the dog to die. Well, I didn't. In fact, I didn't. Not just because I had poisoned him. I'm afraid. What? That I must tell you, I wanted the dog to live. Why? Because so that I could see that our new relationship might come to. Our new relationship. Because, in fact, I wanted the dog. Because Even though he would snarl at me, he would jump at me, he would run behind me, he tried to bite me. Well, he says finally, I wanted the dog to live so that I could see that what our new relationship might come to. Maybe our relationship might change. Well, there will be a different type of attitude after this incident. Now, Peter indicates his increasing displeasure and slowly growing antagonism. Well, please understand, Peter, that sort of thing is important. You must believe me. It is important. We have to come to know the effect of our actions. Now, another deep sigh. Well, anyway, the dog recovered. The dog was saved. It didn't die. I have no idea why. Unless he was a descendant of the puppy that guarded the gates of hell or some resort. He didn't die. I am not upon any mythology. No, I don't believe in those things. He pronounces the word mythology. I am not upon any mythology. Are you? Now Peter sets to thinking, but Jerry goes on. At any rate, you have missed the $8,000 question. Peter, at any rate, the dog recovered his health and the landlady recovered her thirst. In no way altered the Babu's deliverance. When I came home from a movie that was playing 42nd Street, a movie I had seen, or the one that was very much like one or several I had seen, after the landlady told me Puppykins was better, I was hoping for the dog. She told me that her dog was better. I was hoping for the dog. I was hoping for the dog to be waiting for me. Yes, I was. Well, how would you put it? Enticed? Fascinated? I don't think so. Now, heart-shatteringly anxious. That's it. I was heart-shatteringly anxious to confront my friend, to see my friend, my dog again. Now, Peter reacts at this point, very, very scoffingly. Yes, Peter, friend, that is the only word for it. I was heart-shatteringly, etc., to confront my doggy friend again. I wanted to see him. I came in the door and advanced, unafraid, to the center of the entrance hall. The beast was there. The dog was there, looking at me. And he looked better. He looked better for his scrape because he was about to die. Now this time, he looked better with the never mind. I stopped. I looked at him. He looked, so we looked at each other. I think we stayed a long time that way, like a stone statue, just looking at one another. I looked more into his face than he looked into my face. I can concentrate longer at looking into a dog's face than a dog can concentrate at looking at mine, or into anybody's face for that matter. But during that 20 seconds or 2 hours that we looked into each other's face, we looked at each other. We looked at each other's face for 20 minutes. Well, we made contact. Now, here is what I wanted to happen. Now, I loved the dog now. And I wanted him to love me. I love the dog. I want the dog to love me. I had tried to love. I had tried to kill. But both had been unsuccessful by themselves. So I tried to love the dog. He didn't love me. I tried to kill the dog. He didn't get killed. Well, now I want to love him. I hoped, and I don't really know why I expected the dog to understand anything, much less my motivations. I hoped that the dog would understand. Now, at this point, Peter is, he's sitting as if he's hypnotized, because it's a long monologue about Jerry and the dog. I think we'll call it a day.